I'll quit talking about myself now. Okay, so let's take a moment to just get settled here. So please invite your minds to join your body, sitting here. And just observe what's going on in the body. If there are any spots of tension, just take a few breaths to release the tension. And just notice what kind of thoughts your mind is having. And take a moment to rejoice that you're able to be here. Right at this moment, there's nothing arising that is dangerous for you. And bring to mind the reason you decided to show up today. And based on that reason, generate a strong intention to use this time well. And include the wish that it not only benefits yourself, your own mind, that it ripples out to benefit others around you. Let's recite the 4 measurables. On page 34 of the Gold Prayer Book. So before we begin reciting the lines, let's just try to think of real people when you recite this, that, we're not just, it's not just words. We're really trying to think about other sentient beings, so that we can, okay. None of the text is not fitting within the frame.
You need to zoom out a little.
There we go. That's perfect. Thank you. I have this lovely helper named Nana who lives in Portugal. So sometimes I just can't tell you how grateful I am for her help. So it's very kind. It's always good to see her. So, thank you, Nana. So we want to think of real people when we say these words. So if we don't have universal compassion and love for everyone already, then we start with a smaller group, but we just keep expanding it. We just kind of think, okay, all my loved ones and my family. And then we think, and their friends and their loved ones, and then we think in their community. We kind of erase those boundaries that are on maps, and just keep expanding outward, And so we may have family in some other country, and we just bring those to mind and we can expand to their borders, So it's just this understanding of just how big our hearts are, because we really can care about people in distant places, people who are, strangers or that we've just met. We've heard they're having trouble with this and that. We didn't, that generally brings up something for us where, we hope that suffering ends quickly. So, we watch the news, we see groups of people in really catastrophic situations. And so we just want to be able to understand that if we just take a moment to allow ourselves to include all these different groups, and then you've got animals that you have preferences for, and you just can keep spanning that out. So it's just it's really doable, but we generally don't actually do it. We don't do that process. And if we wanted to start having the confidence that we have the capacity to include all beings within our thoughts of wishing, for them to be free of suffering and have happiness and things, this is the process. We have to really develop affection. We don't have to develop liking. It's not about whether we like what they're doing, whether we agree with their opinion, with whether or not they're doing things that are virtuous or not virtuous, or whether they're, it has nothing to do with that. It's this acknowledgement that we're all part of this huge, expansive, interdependent body of sentient beings, and that everything is better if we can be inclusive of everyone, and that's how we'll get there, if we can just keep expanding our hearts and our minds and develop wisdom so that we can come up with solutions to problems that are more inclusive, all these kind of things, but it all starts with this kind of feeling that it matters. And we don't, that we really don't want anybody to suffer. We don't want conflicts to arise to the point of, to escalate to the point of wars. We don't want, it's just, we really would like more peace for everyone, So it's just, but it's a process of recognizing that we have room in our hearts and minds, because there's no boundary to that. I mean, if you're like me and you can right at this moment, think of your favorite, place to visit and picture it. The mind just can travel anywhere it wants to, So it isn't bound the way our bodies are, So take a moment to kind of start that process. And so starting with one group of people that you just, it's easy for you to feel love and compassion. Allow that experience to arise. So the first line is about the Buddha's definition of love. So I'll start there. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So you picture all these people that you've brought to mind. They created the cause for happiness. Then compassion. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. That experience we have when we see someone in pain, where we just immediately wish we could fix it. We really wish them to be free from it. And then joy. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. This is sort of that big view of wishing that all sentient beings would reach the state of, immeasurable happiness that is irreversible and that sorrow never arises. And this is liberation and enlightenment, nirvana. It's also the joy that we can feel for other people's joy, which counteracts our jealousy or envy. And finally, equanimity. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So this is that trying to develop the mind that instead of responding to sentient beings or living beings through the lens of what they do for us, through the lens of whether they help us or hurt us or yada, yada, that's all about us and what we're getting or not getting. That this is just this, that we want all of us to develop a mind that just sees each other for the sentient beings we are, struggling for happiness and wanting to avoid suffering. And we don't know quite what we're doing. So we make mistakes, big mistakes, little mistakes, all kinds of mistakes. But if we had equanimity, all that would lessen. Let's recite the Refuge of Bodhicitta prayer from page 98 in the text if you need it. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Oh. What's on your mind today? We have no minds today. That might be a start. I don't know.
Our minds are out the door.
Out the door.
I have one.
Okay.
I have one. Facing uncertainty.
Facing uncertainty. That's a big deal, isn't it? I think it's one of the major sources of our suffering is that we don't like the feeling of uncertainty. We'd rather know, what's going to happen next, how things are going to work out. How people say, when things, problems arise or whatever, and they kind of go, "I'll be okay." Are you sure? Is it true? Is it helpful? You know, things might not be okay. We have to learn.
That's okay.
Well, that's the point. So we have to learn how to be able to handle whatever so that uncertainty doesn't disturb us because we never know, you know, and we use all sorts of mental stories to keep ourselves thinking we do know. You know, that's what our expectations are all about. And oh, we know what is going to happen. And then when it doesn't work out, we kind of just get mad at everybody else. Well, they hadn't done this, or hey, they hadn't even shown up, you know. But that's not how things arise. Things are very unpredictable. Our lifespan is unpredictable. The Buddha said that's one of our sources of suffering, you know, that death can come at any time and does. So we go from high to low at any time. People lose their homes, their towns. You know, we see that with floods, earthquakes, wildfires, wars. So, and we like to think that, but I'm safe, you know. And so we don't work on our mind to develop the tolerance for, you know, even little stuff in order to develop that skill of being able to tolerate the uncertainty of big stuff. And that leaves us at a disadvantage when that comes up, you know. So this is why it's working on the mind is so important, because working on the mind allows us to recognize that no matter what's external to us, we can find some balance within the mind. You know, so we have to look at what is it I'm so scared of, you know. I'll never forget when I ordained, and Geshe Gelik told me, he said, my dad was really worried about things like health insurance, you know. And he said, don't ever give up your health insurance. And of course, that's not always an easy thing to do as a, you know, a monk or nun, and you don't know where you're going to live, what country you're going to be in, where, you know, blah, 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 you know, and if you have the money for it. But it's, so telling Geshe Gelik this, and he said, oh, well, you know, really, when that becomes a real problem, he'll be dead. And so he won't be worried. And you'll have had practice for a long time, so you won't be worried. It hadn't worked out so well, but you know, but it's true. If you prepare, you know, it's that thing. If you work on your mind, you can be okay with whatever comes up. You know, doesn't mean your world is okay in terms of where you live or having anything that you need or having the food or having money, all that kind of stuff. It's a balance within that says, okay, how will I work with this? We think that that's not really realistic. And yet we see people all over the world in all kinds of different circumstances, and they're coping. You know, extreme poverty, you know, can exist with people existing. You know, there's a limit, of course, to what I mean, you know, the body will fail. You know, if you're experiencing famine for long enough, you die. Your children die. You give up, you know, you don't even have that affect anymore, you know, because everything in your body is being stunted by the lack of nutrition. So it's not that we can't be harmed by circumstances, you know, but our circumstances don't demand that we also add a story of suffering on top of it. you know. This is hard. It's hard work to be able to face big challenges in the world and have, you know how people, a lot of people decide that when there's some major catastrophe in the world, they go there. You know, there are people in this country that volunteered to serve in the Ukrainian army. There are people who go, you know, they're doctors and medical people that go, you know, around the world to help with different situations, you know, at great risk to their own lives. There are people who go to help the recovery efforts after, you know, a flood or the earthquakes or whatever. So these are people who say, okay, I'm going to go there, even though I won't have what I'm accustomed to having, because I believe I can help. And they do help. What does that take to be able to do that? Takes compassion, yeah.
Willingness to put others above yourself.
So, well, yes,
Bravery.
bravery. Why is it brave?
Because they don't know.
Because they don't know. There's that uncertainty.
And that's something we need to accept. I don't know is a perfectly good.
Courage.
Courage, yes. Yeah. It's this, I feel like I'm hearing things over in the, there's the microphone.
That's where they are. In the microphone.
So those are the same things, you know, that we want to develop a capacity for, you know. Can everybody hear me? Okay. No,
Yes.
I couldn't hear you. What was your answer?
That's good.
Is it? I mean, because I have a microphone.
If anyone needs a microphone,
Just speak up.
raise your hand and turn it on.
Uh, so what can you imagine do people think about or did think about at some time before they made the decision to be one of these people who goes to places and helps? Mhm.
How can I get the time off work? Other commitments, I guess, personal.
Yeah. Do I have a skill that might be helpful to the situation? Is there a group I can join? You know, because I tell you, if you show up to one of these places and you're not part of an organized system, they don't want you there. Because what's going to happen?
Logistics and overhead.
You're going to be in the way. You know, they don't have the resources to connect you with other people who can, you know, I mean, you know, you know, so it's not like you can just show up. You have to prepare, you know. So every day we can be working on preparing our mind for the unknown, you know, of what we don't know is going to happen. I mean, and that's one of the advantages of waking up with the mind of that kind of goes, oh, yay, I'm still alive. So, because it's not certain. You know, we think even that's certain. Do you think all the people that drown in floods or, you know, thought that that would happen the night before? Even if they knew what was happening, coming? No. You know? These things that we grasp after as if they're permanent, like tomorrow will come, is incorrect.
Pre-suffering.
Pre-suffering. If you don't think about it, it's avoiding suffering. You know, so I mean, this is the thing, right? We have
Can
to
I
recognize.
share something? Tendron, can I share something?
Gary.
Yes. As you may recall, I lived through the flood up here, and I
Right.
just had a flashback. I wanted to share it with the group. When you said, do you think people that die in floods, know the night before? And there was a man that was on top of his house as it floated down the river. And the neighbors were saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he just had this peaceful look on his face. And he just nodded with a little smile. And they found him later, deceased. And that haunted me for a long time. What must he have been thinking? But he clearly realized this was going to be his day. And he was okay with it.
And so that's a possibility. And we can prepare our minds for that. Where we can really look at, we all know we're going to die, right? We also all might face hardship that we can't imagine, just because things happen. We can prepare our minds for that, like accepting the fact that our good conditions can end. And that doesn't mean we'll lose our mind. So it's something to, so one of the practices that we're taught to do is to, at night when you're going to sleep, is to imagine that, that you're dying. And try to just get that thought in your head. Okay, and this, you're seeking into the sheets in the bed and, and all that stuff, and you're imagining you're dying. And so then you can work at, what bubbles up for you? What kind of thoughts do you have? Is there unfinished business you'd like to take care of? Is there a sense that you can avoid this? You kind of want to see what comes up. And the more you get used to the idea that, of course, this is going to come up at some point, right? Maybe we'll be lucky enough to sleep through it. We won't, actually go, okay, this is the moment. But have you ever been in a near miss accident? Well, you're not in an accident, a near miss, almost accident. So that gives you a kind of a clue what your mind's like when you're faced with that kind of moment. What kind of experiences have you had? Did you have the kind of moment the person's, standing on the roof of his house had?
I feel like it happens so fast. I really can't recall anything other than trying to account for the situation.
Physical, the heart rate goes up, and the tense, anxious.
And then another state of mind had come up, which is my personal favorite, is curiosity. Oh, so this is what it's going to look like. That's what my mind does. It goes, huh, this is interesting.
Irritation.
Irritation.
Let's look it up. Here it goes.
For you, Thubten, like, okay.
Yep. So
Well,
this is it. Or this could be it. Or, we have to kind of practice that mind. That mind of curiosity, of just like, because that's the kind of mind that when unexpected things arise, where you just go, didn't expect
I
that.
have to say, experiencing the man, seeing his utter acceptance
Yeah.
of the predicament that he was in was inspiring.
Yeah.
thinking, okay, that's the kind of mind that I can aspire to.
Yes,
I don't know anything about him. I don't know whether he was a Buddhist, whether he was, highly,
he just had
what
faith.
kind of practice he did, but he was, he wasn't panicking. He wasn't, it was as if he was, he had that curiosity. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, these are and this is, so when we see, have you ever seen stories where people are faced with some kind of unbelievable experience and their response to it is not what you'd expect? They're kind of like, oh, well, I remember seeing a Tibetan one time who was being interviewed after his house was robbed. And, his belief in karma just, well, it's like, okay, this is what ripened for me. So, so there wasn't any blame of the other person, the person who broke into the house or did whatever, it was just sort of like, okay. So it's possible to think about things from a different perspective, but we have to practice it. I mean, so this is part of that reflection on the teachings to where we kind of look, like, okay, so if karma says that, we create the cause for things that we experience, what does that teach me about experiences? Can I continue blaming others for my experience? Is it of any use to blame others for my experience? Does it help in the rebuild effort, of whatever it is, okay, whatever the negative event has happened, does it help your mind to get caught in, a story of blame?
I just feel like my comic load has been lessened.
Well, that's true. So that's one of the things we reflect on. But you have to think about those things. They don't arise naturally. It's not like you just have this inner knowledge and just pop up at a convenient point. It's they pop out at a convenient point because we've been reflecting on it. That, oh, well, what does the teaching say about this? So one of the teachings says that, that if we go for refuge at the time of death, that will protect us from falling to the lower realms. People who believe that God will take care, that if when they die, they'll go to heaven, those things give us, some information that helps us at these moments. So, but what does it involve? Trust in the teaching. It doesn't mean just sitting and accepting whatever happens and not doing anything. It doesn't mean that when problems arise, you just do nothing. We are an active participant in how things unfold. And it's about our responses. So if we don't get caught up in a story of blame, what does that give us energy to do?
Prepare.
I'm sorry?
Prepare.
Prepare, problem solve, adapt, help others. And we have example after example after example of stories and histories and everything else that, people help each other. People come together in groups, and there's equanimity there. They're not just helping, their friends, So that's something that we can, bring to mind, that we have others to rely on. We're not in this alone. And we can seek those helpers. We can become one of those helpers if our situations, allow for that, and it's just this process of recognizing uh, that we're interdependent. And that's helpful. We have to seek it. So what is one of the things we need to prepare in that way, our mind? What is something that can be very hard for people to do?
If they're wrong.
Yeah, that's one of them. But in a situation like a catastrophe,
You can't, and if you can, do something.
well, what is it? What does that involve? Think about it. How about asking for help? People aren't necessarily good at asking for help. So we want to practice that. You know, we want to look at what prevents me from asking for help? What are my roadblocks to that? What states of mind arise? So what states of mind arise?
Fear of losing control.
Fear of losing control.
Right.
Pride. I shouldn't need any help. And then you really, you can't,
Some people take asking for help as an invitation to like command you.
well, yeah. And it's so interesting. I remember one time I was at a retreat and there was a gentleman there who had one of these conditions where their body, I don't know whether it was a muscular dystrophy or but their body was failing. And so he was young, and he knew that in a couple of years he'd be bedridden and he'd die soon after that, that it was just, one of those processes. So in the place this retreat was at Land of Medicine Buddha, and it's not this flat kind of place. It's got hills and stairs and all sorts of things. So he couldn't get to the dining room, for meals. So he had to ask for help, right? And so I volunteered to help. And then, it's like, he's telling me all the things he would like and exactly what he would like, and I'm going, well, this is kind of tedious, I mean, really, because I'm very childish. So I'm thinking, da, 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 da. And it was just such a wonderful experience because he said, if I don't ask for exactly what I want, I'll never get what I want again. Because he can't do it for himself. So he has to let people know exactly what he wants, or just never get what he wants again. It's like, yeah, wake up, Tendron. It was such a good teaching in that, when you want to help someone, you need to be mindful of them and their needs and what they want and what kind of help, they're really looking for, not just what you want to give. These things take practice in our minds, that where we can, like, okay, you say you're willing to help. What does that mean? It's we need to prepare for those things. Some people like learn certain skills because they realize they want to be able to help in these situations and they have no skills. I mean, I'm not the one you asked to get the chainsaw and cut the limbs out of your yard. So, and I'm not going to learn. So just so you know.
Not in this life.
Not in this life. And that moment's past. I read an article about women lumberjacks or lumberjills during World War II, in England, because England imported 96% of their wood. And so when the war came, they couldn't do that. And they needed wood for rifles, things, that you build and all this kind of stuff. And so their men were were serving in fighting the war. And so women took over the lumberjack business, and were successful at it. So let's throw out all those gender notions. So, but this is, so some people learn skills. They learn what they can do to be of help. And those people become phlebotomists, that blood thing, so that they can go to, medical emergency type things. These are skill, people decide to do this because, that will give them some things that they can actually do to help. People learn logistics, people learn, all this kind of stuff. So people have things like those portable generators. Most of these things evolve, starting with like, I'd love to have one of those. I was in an emergency, but then it morphs into and I can help someone else with it, So, but this all takes mental preparation. We have to be able to see beyond, what we can do right this moment, and understand just how much we can learn, how much we can learn to do, and that we have to be willing to be brave, to face uncertainty. I suspect all these people that how many people have you ever noticed that are helping in catastrophes also lost their home? They have no home to go back to. But they're not just doing nothing. It's, so this is something where we have the capacity for. And when there are disasters, there's a part of this that wish we could do those things, which is a wonderful quality that we have that. This is our Buddha nature, that we have this desire to be able to help and alleviate someone's suffering. We think about what we can donate, how we can get things to people. People would drive miles and miles and miles to places. My niece helped with a little town in Louisiana, or maybe it was Mississippi, that got wiped out by Katrina, and so she spent the summer, helping build things and stuff when she was, like 19, It's fabulous that this is their nature. So when we face uncertainty, it is helpful to think about the resources we have within. We have an incredible ability to adapt, to make do, to come up with new ideas, to figure out possible solutions, to be able to listen to others through their struggles. So we need to develop some confidence that we can handle what comes up. It doesn't make uncertainty pleasant. We want the uncertainty to go away. That's not realistic. So holding on to wanting things to get back to normal causes suffering. That's not how it works. And it's not that, like people are facing, like wildfires. Do they just happen once and go away? Do floods happen once and not happen again? No, people, that's not what happens. Hurricanes happen again and again and again. Tornadoes happen again and again and again. Everything's impermanent. So things are constantly changing. So being able to accept that doesn't change anything. It's already true. So the resistance to the accepting of that is an additional suffering we don't need. The uncertainty is enough. We don't need to add to that with thinking that it shouldn't happen, or Can't we do something to make it never happen? No, that's fruitless fatigue. You know, there's no point in that. Acting as if it could happen any minute, there's no point to that either. You know, we don't have to live in a constant state of fear, except we need to be ready and confident that should things happen, we'll figure it out. You know, we'll have others to help us. But these require certain skills. So if you don't have the skill of being able to ask for help, you need to practice it. You know, because you're going to need that skill. How many people know someone who's reached, you know, older age, like the old, it still refuses to accept help? Fun, isn't it? And you can see the suffering that adds to their lives. It's kind of obvious, you know. So we may not be able to fix them, but we can learn from that. Oh, you know. And, you know, it's like people, I'm not going to get hearing aids. Okay. What's that about? You know, it's very interesting. All the ways we kind of make it harder for us to be resilient. Being able to accept that, okay, the future where I am is uncertain, but that's true everywhere. I'm just facing, you know, the particulars of change where I am right now. But this isn't unusual. So we can learn to be able to kind of go, okay, I can tolerate this. I don't like it, but I can tolerate it. You know, that we can find a way to have, you know, because we'll, as our confidence that, you know, okay, I'm not going to lose my mind. I mean, that's obviously, that's one of my fears. I'm just going to lose my mind. You know? So, you know, because I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I can do that talking to Social Security on the phone. You know? So, you know, it's just like, you know, it's understanding that, yeah, we don't know, we can't know everything about how to respond, do whatever. I mean, it's, you know, they're going to continue to be things that we're uncertain about. We don't know how it's going to work out. We don't know what the future is going to hold. But we don't have to lose our minds in the process, which means we don't have to lose our peace of mind. You know? Like the person facing drowning and finding some peace within. You know? What you think?
I had a situation where I almost drowned. It wasn't obvious that I was in a position. I just got really tired. I was swimming
Yeah.
very aggressively, and it was in open water, ocean. And I had to ask for help.
Right.
And that was the smartest thing I did.
Yes.
And when you're in a life and death situation, sometimes your mind gets very focused and you have a lot of clarity. It happened to me a couple of times. And each time I asked for help, and it was so critical. And someone came over, swam to me, and then he was a professional dive master, it turned out. He took me to the boat. Fine, but it was that recognition of needing help and asking. Really was very good.
So, and that's something we can practice. You know, that's something like if you're, you know, we can think about what are the situations that scare me? What would it look like? What could I do if that happened? We need to build some confidence in our mental ability to think about what should I do? You know, so that, you know, because sometimes what happens is panic arises, you know, we can talk ourselves down from panic, but it's a learned skill, you know, of recognizing, okay, I'm not really having a heart attack. I'm panicking. This is not going to help.
Or the story of Venerable Tendron when he was a child. He fell in the river.
Yeah. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when he was a small child, like 2 or something, you know, fell into a river or a creek near his house. Or hard to, you know, anyway. And so what does he do? His mind goes, oh, the person known as, I don't know what his name was at that time. It wasn't Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He had not been recognized as such or named as such. But anyway, he thought the person named as blah, blah, blah is going to drown. Without panic, this, you know, just, okay, so this is what it's going to look like. That's a skill he learned from previous lives that he was so good at. He brought it with him. You know, now he may have been already a Buddha at that point, you know, who knows? But, you know, but the point is, it's a skill we can develop of not panicking and just, now what gives someone that kind of confidence? Do you think Lama Zopa Rinpoche had any uncertainty about what's next? That's one of the things. By, you know, having confidence in the Buddha's teachings, having a confidence in a path, knows that this isn't the last life, that there's no last life, you know, so there'll be another life, you know. So there's no reason to grasp onto this life as if it's the all end all and be all of all time. Yeah.
So I had a drowning experience at 4 years old. I was walking along a beach and they were dredging it. And I took one step and that was it.
Yep.
And I have a distinct memory to this day of being like a cork, bobbing up and seeing land in the sky, and then just gently going down and getting a mouthful. And I kind of accepted it, but I don't know about a past life or whatever, but I don't think I could do that today.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's true. I mean, it's like they say that people who can remember their past lives as children can forget over time, the further away they are in time from that, you know. So little children are able to, you know, bring up more stuff of their past habits. But I think also you may not have learned fear yet, you know. So it's understanding that we live in a society that's very afraid of everything. Yeah, that covers it. You know, and this is those 8 worldly concerns, isn't it? Where we're afraid of loss, whether it's our, you know, oh no, I'm going to die, that loss, our loved ones' loss, you know, we're going to lose all our money, we're going to lose our home, we're going to lose all our safety. These are all those concerns that drive our decisions, you know. Instead of, there's nothing wrong with, you know, having, you know, we need things. That's true. That's not a story we've made up, you know, but our grasping onto things as if we're not going to lose something that we have is unrealistic. We lose everything that we have. Yeah, Nick.
Well, I also had a drowning experience.
Yeah, okay. Everybody's had a drowning experience. Okay.
Because it was with a kid that was roughhousing, right? And you know, when I was struggling against it, it got to a point where I was like, okay, what I can do is just lay here and float. And letting go of like the fight actually brought about the opportunity to get out of that situation.
Right. So that should give you some confidence about, because this is something you've learned, you know, that you like, oh, okay, sometimes the lack of resistance is going to pay off. And that's absolutely true in drowning. Lifeguards have to learn how much resistance they're going to face when they're trying to rescue someone, because people panic and they resisting your help, you know, because they don't really recognize it as help at that moment. So it's, you know, it's all of these things. But if you've had a personal experience where you've seen it work, then that, that's the kind of thing you can draw on, of kind of going, okay, I don't have to panic here. In fact, that might not help, and we can talk to ourselves about these things to kind of learn that we are in fact resilient. But if we have a tendency to be, to panic, to anxiety, we need some practice. We really need to learn, that most of what we're telling ourselves in those moments is a lie. Because what are we telling ourselves when we're anxious or panicking? Oh, that we're going to die.
Can't do anything.
That we can't do anything. She
Like that
said,
this is the most important
well, yeah,
in my life.
because at that moment it is.
We're not up to the challenge of what's we're being confronted.
So what are we telling ourselves? We don't have any of those skills when we're panicking, right? Like this is really serious. That's one thing, because we might die in it. But also, that we somehow can't handle it. But we have evidence of all kinds of things in our lives that we've handled. Like, and what amazes me, I mean, if your parents, that, wow, your kids can get themselves into trouble and you can, help and not panic. I remember when my older brother fell through a shower, back when they had glass doors, fell through it. And she goes upstairs. First she goes, oh, are you hurt? And he goes, yeah, maybe. This was not an uncommon occurrence in our house. So, so she goes up and she said, there's this piece of glass just dangling right over his neck. And so she, she's just kind of, okay, I have to be careful here to not jar it, and I don't need, I want him to think everything's fine, all that stuff. And so she grabbed it. Of course, she's, insane, and that, but she was able to do it anyway, So it's a strength that we have, to be able to act in moments that we think there's no way we could act in it. And we learn a lot of those things through raising children and discovering what we can do for someone else. Because that child is our life, and we want to be able to rescue them from any kind of suffering. And so, in things like that, we actually can rescue them from further suffering. What we can't do it, when they're first heartbreak. But it's just, it's this, this is the things we have. We have this capacity, So these can give us some confidence that, okay, this situation is terrible. I'm really sorry we're in it. But I'm going to figure out a way to cope with this. It doesn't have to ruin my mind. I don't have to think that I'm not going to be able to have peace of mind or any happiness or any, blah, blah, blah until this is over. Because that's not true. We can make it true, but we need to, so how we've talked many times about how many of us have the habit of trashing ourselves. We're really hard on ourselves. If something goes wrong, we make a mistake or blah, blah, blah. And we just, beat ourselves up about it. We should already be there. I should be a Buddha by now, blah, blah, blah. So this is one of those habits that contributes to things like panicking. So just like when we need to talk back to the voice that says, you're useless, you can't do it, you'll never get it right, you'll, blah, blah, blah. You need to, kind of say, well, that's not true, again and again and again until you shut that voice up. Because it's really one of your biggest obstacles. It's an obstacle of becoming enlightened because you think you can't do it. It's an obstacle to do even just growing your heart out a little because you think you can't do it. And so if we have the habit of constantly telling ourselves that every mistake is proof we can't do it, We need to break that habit because it's not true.
So you're saying it is possible to break that habit and take control of our life at some point?
Well, we can, like right now,
Yes,
not at some point,
yes.
that we in fact are doing that now. You know, that's the key piece is, hey, if you're still here, you're doing something right. You know? So we need to draw from all these different multitudes of experiences of things we've learned, habits we've changed, you know, all this stuff, and develop some confidence, you know, that we're capable of reasoning out a situation and deciding, okay, I'm going to go this direction, not that direction. So we can develop our wisdom. We can develop the awareness that says, oh, this habit's not helping me, you know, so I'm going to work on that. All that kind of stuff. What else gets in the way?
Sorry, Venerable, there's a comment in the chat from Penny, but it's been
Okay.
quite a while ago.
Share vulnerabilities. Okay, Penny, what are you getting at there?
So Penny, if you can, and if you want, and you unmute yourself and just explain what you meant.
Or you can type in an answer if you're still there. Or not. So sharing vulnerabilities.
So it might have been context may have
Yes.
completely escaped it.
Well, but this is one of those things that we have to, you know, when we're trying to develop skills, like asking for help, being able to share what, you know, how we are vulnerable. The fact that everybody's vulnerable in these kinds of catastrophes. You know, it's not like, I don't know, you know, we really don't have, you know, they're not, Superman's not coming, you know? So, you know, and we don't really need him. That's the shocker.
There's a new movie coming out. I feel the same way. You don't really need
You
it.
know, this is, you know, this is the, you know, the Buddha said that, you know, it's our mind that we need to work on. You know, that's where all our power comes from. And the mind heart are the same word. It's not, you know, we don't, you know, Buddhism, they don't split the thing from intellect and emotion. It's all the same. It's all mind. And mind, as scientists are figuring out, they can't find. It's not just in one location or something. You know, in Buddhism, we say it's not material. It's not a physical thing at all. You know, our brain is a great support for it, but it's not the same thing. So this understanding that, you know, sharing and, you know, developing, respecting the interdependence we have with each other is a strength. It makes our vulnerabilities more, well, first of all, it's understanding that we're all vulnerable in the same way. You know, we all have a body that's going to end. We all don't like suffering. You know, we all wish we could figure out how to be happy. And then we can help each other do that. We don't have to be, and in fact, it's an impossible way to exist, this idea of being self-sufficient and independent. That somehow we can learn enough skills to one day just be
autonomous.
Yeah, whole. And and then once we get there, that's it. We don't have to work anymore. That doesn't exist. Not in samsara. It's just not, that's not possible. We need each other. We depend on each other all the time. We depend on not just people we know, we depend on mostly strangers. Everybody realizes that, right? And those are things worth thinking about. That, oh, I think I'm all independent. I have to be independent, that I can't need help or da 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 da. Try to get dressed next time with clothes you made and fabric you wove, food you grew.
So you're saying that if we just decide this is something we can do, we can follow through and make our lives better today.
Well, you'll fail if you think you can be independent and not depend on others. It's not possible. And we kind of live our lives, unless you're fortunate enough to come from a more communal society, we kind of live our lives as if, we're supposed to be able to do that. And sure, we need skills, but mostly we need skills to be able to share them.
I was at the beach a few years ago and I ran into someone I knew from Century Village that was like 90. And it was one of those summer sudden rains and that was crazy. And so I saw her under a tiki hut, huddled a lot of people. It was very strong. And I said, I'm going to give you a ride home. And she was like, no, I'm going to take the Century Village bus home. And I tell that it was her independence. I argued it a few times and I realized
She had a solution already, and yeah, and and she's 90 years old. Her method has worked for her so far. We also need to kind of understand that. I have a 95-year-old stepmom who's finally suggested to her son that maybe it's time she moves into one of those assisted living places, So, like, it's like shocking to all of us that she brought it up. But I'm so glad she brought it up because I know it was a fear for her children, that because she was living alone, she really couldn't see. Her eyes, she has that macular degeneration. Her eyesight just was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Her balance was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so she finally fell and then needed a pacemaker and da-da-da. It's been a hell of a 2 weeks, So, she comes out of all that and she kind of goes, okay, maybe I really can't live here alone. Nobody's going to say, well, and yeah, that's been true for a while because she made it this far. The reality is she did make it this far, so am I to say, even though, we really think, oh yeah, I should say, but it wasn't without all her children worrying quite a bit, so anyway. But we do hold on fiercely to this idea that we shouldn't need others. We might need our partner, but that's sort of the limit of it. Maybe our children, but a lot of people feel like, okay, the children they have their lives, no. So it's very interesting. But and that can get in the way of accepting help when you actually need it, So. So I guess mainly the thing about this idea of uncertainty is we need to accept the fact that we can't change that. Things are uncertain. But they've always been uncertain. You spent your whole life with that reality. So there's no reason to be afraid of that now, even though we are. But, you know, it actually, we've been living with it always. And we can develop mental strategies to be okay when we're facing it directly. You know? And part of it is this understanding how every day we're faced with things that don't go the way we expect, and we deal with it. You know, so we really can rely on the fact that we have some capacity to work with this situation. Yeah. That peace of mind doesn't come from external things being fixed. There's no question that that's a condition that helps, but it's not the only answer, because you can have peace before it's fixed. And we have to develop some confidence that peace of mind is an inner process. It is not dependent on externals. And it actually frees our mind up to be able to bring more wisdom to our problem solving, to, you know, so that, you know, we might come up with, you know, some solutions to what we're facing. Solutions in the sense of problem solving, not solutions in the sense of like erasing uncertainty. That's not happening. Brian.
There's an old Zen koan or gatha, enjoy uncertainty.
Yes.
We have to
Isn't
reach
that
that
fun?
state of happy. Everything is always going to be uncertain, but we have to be happy anyway.
Yeah. And it's also this idea that, oh, isn't this interesting?
Exactly.
You know, if you bring curiosity to situations, it takes a different tone, you know, and and who knows what's going to evolve from that. You know, it's like when you go to a party or something and it's totally different than what you expected. And if you sit there going, oh my God, you know, what's this about? You know, you're probably not going to have such a great time. But if you're like, oh, isn't this interesting? You know, and you go meet some new people and blah, 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 who knows what will come out of that? You know, it's just, it's being receptive to the possibility as opposed to assuming you're going to know how this unfolds and it's going to be bad, which is habit we have, you know. So thanks for sharing that, Brian. That's hilarious. They're all yes, and by the way, another option is to enjoy it. Notice I don't go there. That reflects my not a good habit either. So, but so this is, you know, it's very life is hard. Do you remember Scott Peck's book? And those of you who are old, you know, The Road Less Traveled. Yeah. The very first sentence, I think, is if people would accept that life is hard, it wouldn't be so difficult. You know? Because there's truth to that, isn't it? I mean, it's this, the Buddha said, this is samsara. It is the nature of suffering. You know? So expecting anything else is not realistic. But we don't have to be miserable because of it. We can, you know, do things to find inner peace, inner happiness, inner confidence, inner joy, you know, without the world cooperating with us. And the more open and curious we are to what's possible, not what, you know, what the obstacles are, then the more we'll discover what's available to us that we didn't realize was there, both from within and with other people.
helps us to see things differently.
completely differently. It's really interesting. So we need to notice when we walk into some situation or some situation is hit us in the face to see what our habit energy is. You know, what's our first response to that? And is it helping me? You know, to be able to recognize that, oh my goodness, I'm just assuming the worst is going to happen here. Or there's no hope, or that da 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 da, you know, and then we get stuck there. So it's really being able to go, okay, that's not my mind I need to follow. This does not say that we don't also have to grieve, have you know, allow the feelings of loss to arise, you know, because that's also going on. But loss does not mean the end of happiness. You know, loss is something we all have to experience kind of again and again throughout our lives. So we just don't need it to be like, that's it. I've experienced loss now, there's nothing for me in the future. That's not true. So we need to see if that's what our mind thinks, that it is true. Because the Buddhas are not telling you that you're not going to experience loss. In fact, they're saying that's exactly what you're going to experience is loss. You know, there's a cause for that loss, and that's being stuck in this cycle of birth and death, uncontrolled cycle. You know, I remember when you kind of get this feeling that, you know, like, you know, your teacher that initiates, you know, monasteries or something, you know, they don't grieve loss or something, you know, but that's not true. They said the only thing you can do, like when your teacher dies, is cry. So it's, you know, loss is real, you know, because you are left behind. But we don't have to worry about the person who died. They've moved on. You know, they've gone to their next life. So it's, you know, it's us that are experiencing the loss. You know, we have to work through that.
What happens, the older you get, you see more loss.
Yeah. And you start to realize you really can't, you know, like, and we go through phases where you reach a certain age and then you feel like everybody's dying around you. And then that subsides a little bit because if you're not one of them that dies, you know, you go a little longer, you know, and then, you know, and then you kind of don't get thrown at all. Okay, that's everybody in my class. They're all dead. That's how, you know, my stepmom reached that phase. She was in a book club for 50 years. So, you know, from her high school, you know, they were people that she knew in college or, you know, yeah. So, but she saw all sorts of that evolution. And then finally, she was the one who could no longer continue, you know, because she can't read anymore. So, you know, it's like, it may have been 60 years now. It may have been longer than that. I can't think that high. Anyway, but I mean, you know, so it's this, you know, and that's, if we're lucky enough, we experience lots of loss. You know, that's, you know, and if we're even luckier, which is not really a Buddhist word, but anyway, we grieve that loss, you know, that we really feel a loss because we've been, you know, fortunate enough to have love in our lives, to have friendships. We had, you know, we've had meaningful relationships that enriched us, you know, and we lose those, and we experience a loss. You know, that's not bad news. And the good news is you'll meet these people again. They just won't be, you know, necessarily your people, you know, but they could be, you know. So change, though, change is always happening, always, 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 always. And we can decide that that's a bad thing or realize that nothing can exist without it. You know, And we might have to remind ourselves that there'd be no flowers if there wasn't change. There'd be no trees if there wasn't change. There'd be no little children if there wasn't change. Maybe could skip all the teenagers.
They suffer the most.
They do some of the most. That's why we don't want them around, you know. You're right. I agree with you. I remember my teenage years and I don't want to go back there, and yet I'm going to. Anyway, so, you know, this is the thing. Life is hard. Samsara is the nature of suffering. But that doesn't mean there's not happiness in samsara, that we can't develop a peace of mind that can handle what comes up, you know, that we can, you know, rise to the occasion and discover real strength that we have. Skills that we deny that we have. So it's, and you know, I mean, it's that thing of, you know, that some of the worst times of our lives produce some of the best aspects of, you know, of our actions now. You know, because that's how we, you know, we learn about our capacity. We learn that, oh, I don't want to be like that. And we can change it. You know,
And grow.
and grow. And like have better relationships. Be more helpful. Well, it's all good. In this kind of sucky kind of way. Because it's not that life is good. No, that's not true. But there's a way out of this miserable existence, and it's our mind or our heart, however you want to, you know, phrase it. It's the inner work that matters. And the externals, you know, they're conditions for things, but they're not the most important part at all. Okay.
There's another comment, Venerable, from Penny.
Yes, I see that. In order to be helpful, you need to know what help is needed. Absolutely. You know, we really need to check up. You know, it's this. And then if we're the one who needs help, we need to be able to share these things. You know, I mean, it's amazing what you can, you know, like if you have to have surgery and you're terrified, it kind of can help to tell the nurse, you know, I'm terrified here. I've recently done that. So it's like, you know, these are things, you know, and then you have people, you know, like you have people like Adrian who'll sit by your side and go, you know, I mean, this is the thing, you know, so we have to be able to, I mean, it's helpful. It's not just have to be able to, it's that we will get what we need if we allow ourselves to ask for what we need. We may not get it in the form we expect or from the person we wish we'd get it from. We just, you know, it's just, we got to put it out to see if the universe can provide. And it's not going to be the universe, it's going to be other people. Okay, I've run my mouth enough today. So it's time to rejoice that we've had an opportunity to think about things from a different perspective, that we took that opportunity, we made that happen, you know, and that's how we do this work. So it's, you know, we could have just been watching some latest episode of something, you know, or whatever, croissants with chocolate. So I don't know why my mind always goes there. I should. So, but you know, so and then and anything positive we do, any positive thought we have, any positive words we say, any positive actions we do, all of those lay imprints on our mind stream that will ripen as something positive in the future. And so we want to share that benefit with others. So Shanti Deva's prayer, it's on page either 244, 246. So take a moment to rejoice in your own positive actions. Rejoice in all the actions that have been happening while we've been here. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, atone in happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression.
May the blind see forms
And the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the poor find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Let me say that with this uncertainty thing, one of the things that we forget to rely on are enlightened beings. So if you have any confidence at all that they're enlightened beings, that's the purpose of saying mantras and like reciting the praises of the 21 Taras, all of those. That's what, when the Tibetans were exiled into India, they recited the praises of the 21 Taras a lot because it helps, Tara will help free you from fear. So, things like that. So if you have an affinity or just a natural attraction to a particular, that is medicine Buddha, green Tara or white Tara or Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig, that these, that we can also draw on them, and through our refuge that this is, this help is out there that can help us deal with these, with great uncertainty. So that's also available to us, but it does have to come from your side in terms of, you have to, give it a try, or you have to have, some sort of feeling that maybe this will help. So give it, give it a try. So for the long life of His Holiness, in the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it's like on page 234 in the text. I think you might need to zoom out just a touch. There we go. Thank you. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravagas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam, father and son, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge. And from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam and glory to fortunate disciples. So Sherry, get in touch and we'll talk more about that aspect of it, of relying on enlightened beings. So, and if y'all have questions about it, bring it up next time and I will talk about it too then as well. So thanks heaps. Thursday night we're continuing discussing the Lamrim path to enlightenment through using the book Wisdom Energy. Join us. You don't have to have read the book, because it's questionable how many people who show up have read the book, but the process. So, and that's it. And then next Sunday is normal. There's nothing else.
On the 28th is a holy day.
Right.
It's Losar. And so we will be meeting here at 7 where it's
What day of the week is it?
it's a Friday. It's Friday the 28th, and we're going to do a puja. To be determined. It's
Nicole and I will be talking about it today.
Yes.
So Losar is Tibetan New Year, which is, they follow a lunar calendar and it's different from the Chinese New Year and all that kind of stuff. But also Lama Tsongkhapa, who is one of the main teachers in this tradition, started a tradition of a prayer festival for 2 weeks or 10 days or something like that, and called Mon Lam. So, and those are to mark the days of miracles in the Buddha's time, when he displayed the, miraculous powers for his students. And so all of those days are holy days, and they multiply all your good actions by quite a lot. So, and your negative actions by quite a lot. So it's a good time to be mindful. So
It's a good time to make a donation to your local Buddhist center.
yeah, that too.
You
That
really
too.
get all the extra merit.
That's
Or become
right.
a member, right?
Yeah, or
Yes,
become a
become
member. Yes.
Yeah.
So, so that's good. So if you happen to be able to take a Friday off, or that or you're free on a Friday, then please consider doing that, because it's really great merit, and it's just different.
7 o'clock at night.
Yes,
7 o'clock at night.
yes, correct.
Gee, I didn't hear that correctly at all. So you don't have to be off work. So ignore me.
I don't know, Nicole, are we gonna Zoom it? Probably, I don't know.
I can't do that commitment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anthony, that again falls on Anthony.
It depends, if we have someone comfortable with
Yeah,
that.
I
To be
mean,
determined.
To be determined.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Depends on everyone's karma.
Okay. All right. Check your emails anyway, or check the calendar. So, so thank you for your efforts, and good to see you all. And
Once again, thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.